Love, I want you to give a 30-second speech to all incoming MBA students. What do you say to them? Go.
Okay, so figure out your why. Why exactly are you applying to business school? What are you looking to gain out of the experience?
Yeah.
And what are you okay with not getting out of the experience, right? So it could be things around like a geographical move, a career switch, or just building new relationships. And so you need to be realistic around like what your priorities are, what you're okay with not getting out of the program, and also be very realistic about like what other people that have gone into those same programs have gotten out of it. Good luck, and I'm sure you'll kill it.
Amazing. I couldn't have said it any better. That was great.
Okay.
I wanted to put you on the spot I have to pressure test this 3+ years at McKinsey, you know. Being on the spot is what you do. Okay. That was really good. Welcome to a special production of the Business 101 podcast. I am your host, Ayo Oye. This is a limited series specifically sharing stories and experiences from some of the world's most selective and most prestigious business schools from the lens of recent international graduates. Today, I have the immense honor of welcoming a special guest from one of America's most beloved universities and business schools, and one that needs no introduction. Ranked consistently as one of the most prestigious in North America and the world, Columbia Business School at Columbia University. My guest is Love Alabi, a Nigerian and an incoming associate at the world's most prestigious consulting firm, McKinsey, in the Houston office. She recently completed a MBA at CBS, where she focused on climate and finance, contributed to Microlumbia, the student-led impact investing fund, and led projects in the small business consulting program. She spent her summer as an associate at Goldman Sachs. Before business school, Love worked in recruiting before moving into strategy consulting. She holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from Covenant University and is passionate about advancing clean energy and building solutions for the global transition to a sustainable economy. From expanding energy access to decarbonizing hard-to-abate industries, Love is all about impact and value. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome Love to the podcast. Good to have you here, Love.
Thank you, Ayo. It's my pleasure to be here. And thank you for doing this as well.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for making the time. Love, you have a very interesting name. Is there a story behind the
Oh
name?
my God. There's in fact a story behind this. And I used to start every my tell me about yourselves in interviews or coffee chats. I would always start with my name is Love, and yes, that's indeed my real name. Because people would always be like, you would always have this immediate reaction. So I just
Yeah.
try to keep the elephant out of the room. But no, there is a story. So growing up, my
Okay.
father used to call me my love, like as a
Okay.
nickname, because I've always been a daddy's girl. And
Nice.
my little brother grew up hearing my dad call me my love. And so
Okay.
he started calling me Love, although he couldn't pronounce it well. He would be like rough.
Rough.
And so he started calling me that. And because he went to my primary school, he also started calling me that at school. So the whole thing just like spiraled into kind of like a joke. But then everyone just started calling me Love. And eventually they were like, yeah, you need to legally change your name. I wish I
Wow.
thought more deeply about that decision before they made it.
Interesting.
But
Wait.
yeah,
If
my
you're,
name was
are you comfortable saying what was your name before?
my first
Your
name was
first
Emanuela.
Emanuela. Okay.
Yeah.
Both beautiful names. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for making the time to be here.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
I think a good place to start, Love, would be to talk about like your journey, and this is like outside the MBA. So before you talked about the decision to get an MBA, right? Who was Love? I know I spoke a bit about your profile, but let's add more flesh to that profile. Talk a bit about your background and everything you did before business school.
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I did an undergrad in international relations. And I think at the time I went to uni, most of the people that were in my class, I thought that, yeah, I'm going to study international relations and be an ambassador. And then I very quickly realized that only only a very small percentage of the class would realistically end up becoming ambassadors. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to find a more, viable career path here. And so I couldn't at the time, like my sister has always been like in the corporate space, in finance, like working in all the attractive companies. But for me, I felt like I couldn't really see myself in any of those companies because international relations, like what team do I work on? Like I can't work in like, I don't know, deal advisory at a KPMG or that kind of thing. So I wasn't really sure where to place myself in the corporate space. And then I started to talk to people who were ahead of me in university at the time. And then I figured that human resources was something that would be accessible enough for me and like get my foot into the door in these like multinational, like big international companies. And so from I believe my third year, I did an internship in recruiting at KPMG. And then I was like, okay, like this is something I can do. And then after I graduated, I also took a full-time role in recruiting at Sterling Bank, which is a pretty large bank in Lagos, Nigeria, or in
Yeah.
Nigeria in general. But what I realized after spending, I think, a couple months actually in recruiting was that I am very in the best positive, like in the best way I can put this, like I'm very restless when it comes
Mm.
to my career. Like I realized that I'm the kind of person that wants to do many different things and not just like do one fixed thing over a long period of time. I'm sure there's a lot of people that find fulfillment in doing that, but for me, I realized very early on that that wasn't me. And I started to get very like not dissatisfied, but just kind of feeling like, okay, I need to do something different. Like recruiting has been all fun. It's been great to like
Yeah.
meet people, facilitate their career process, blah, blah, blah. But I think I need to do something, not just do something different, but something that allows me to do a lot of different things. And I talked to my older sister, who is like in many ways my career mentor. And I was like, okay, like I need to be doing something different here. And then consulting had come up as something that would make sense for me because, you'll be working on like a project by project basis. You're
Yeah.
doing different things in every project that you're doing. And so I figured, okay, cool, like let me apply to this. Although before then, like I was aware of Bain, BCG, and McKinsey to an extent just from undergrad and like, events that they hosted in my school. But at that point in my career, I realized that, okay, for someone that's like looking for variety like I was, then consulting was probably what made the most sense. And so I
Yeah.
took that step to apply to McKinsey at the time. And after, a pretty long and arduous process, I must say, then joined the firm. I found exactly what I was looking for in terms of just doing many different projects from like stuff in organization
Mm.
to strategy to like cost optimization, just so many
Yeah.
different functions. And then across different industries, whether it was like telco, oil and gas, like banking. And I was just even so fascinated by how, like, an industry that I could wake up on Monday morning not understanding, I would get
Mm.
stuff done and, just be able to very quickly ramp up, whether I was by talking to experts or doing my own
Yeah.
desk research, to getting to a point where I would be like, even till now, like in conversations with my tech friends. And because I did this one project in like
Mm.
go-to-market strategy for like for a tech product rollout, like they're using some terms and I'm like, yeah, I know what that
I
is. Like
understand
I
that.
understand what you're saying. And so, yeah, it gave me exactly what I was looking for in that variety. But I think what consulting also gave me was it helped me find where my passion was. And so, as you mentioned, and as I like to say, I'm very passionate about just like energy transition, like everything around sustainability. And I found that like heartbeat while I was in consulting. So it was a thing where because of the people I was working with and people that I really started to enjoy working with, I started to get pulled into a specific kind of project or to specific kinds of projects. And as I started to do more and more of these projects, I realized like, okay, beyond just enjoying this work, like this is actually content I'm passionate about. And this is something that I can really see myself doing long term over the course of my career. And so when I got to a point where I had made that decision, I think at the time I was like 2-ish, maybe 2.5 years into the firm and getting
Mm.
close to the point where, I would either go to get my MBA or maybe leave the firm to do something different. But
Yeah.
because I realized I had come to a place where, I was a bit more clear on what at least my near term ambition was, it then made sense as a next step to go do an MBA to one, like just get smarter about climate, but also to build my knowledge of finance because I had never been in a context where I learned like the actual basics of finance, like
Mm.
reading balance sheets, like reading income statement, all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that point, I also really needed a break because it had been like almost 3 very intense years of working. So I was like, okay, yeah, it's time to do something different now.
That makes sense to me. And I was actually laughing when you said you studied international relations to try and be an ambassador. I know I had a lot of friends growing up who studied political science because they wanted to be politicians. I'm like, bro,
We
you're
were
gonna
so
you're gonna
misguided.
teach government. You will teach government in a private university if
No,
you're lucky.
truly.
But yeah, I feel like you took a very methodical and scientific like approach figuring out what you want to do and deciding to do an MBA. I know that a lot of people, I mean, at firms like McKinsey, right, there's a path once you're like a senior BA to go and get an MBA or like move up to manager role, and getting an MBA is like a very popular path. But aside the fact that that's what most people do, was there any, I mean, you spoke about wanting to get smart about the energy industry and get a business background. Aside the career reasons, was there any personal reasons why, you wanted to get an MBA?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I will say for sure, like the career points that you mentioned, and also just like the environment I was in were very big factors that drove that. Because when you're working with lots of people that also have MBAs and like just have great things to say about the experience they had, like what
Yeah,
it taught them, the relationships they built, that definitely also like builds that like desire in your mind that okay, I would like to
yeah,
do this too. But I think for me as well, like I was thinking about what would give me like the most, like what would be most valuable for me truly in the long term. Because for me, I thought, okay, like a master's would be great, but then in what specifically?
yeah.
And like, what if, I did a master's focused on, I don't know, like just something so deeply specific and did a thesis on something so deeply specific. And maybe like 3 years down the line, I was like,
It's no
actually,
longer,
like, I'm
yeah,
not keen on this anymore. You know what I mean? And so I feel like it was also the fact that I felt like the MBA would give me a lot more flexibility such
yeah.
that wherever I decided to go in my career, like whatever pivot I decided to take, it would still potentially be relevant down the line. And so I think just that flexibility that it gave was something that really I found appealing.
That makes all the sense, all the sense. But a lot of people, I mean, most people, once we decide to get an MBA, you then have to decide like exactly where. And a lot of people end up choosing between European schools and Americans and North American
Yep.
schools generally, right?
Yeah.
Were you at that point where like, should I go to Europe? Should I go to North America? Or like, was it North America from day one? And was it like the US from day one? What did that look like for you?
Oh, that's such a great question. So actually, I started out wanting to go to a European school. Like, I wasn't even absolutely sure where or like what that looked like. But
Mm,
I think again, environment is such a big thing because
yeah,
a lot of the people. So, for instance, there was one person that I had followed. I had followed her career very closely, just like someone that I kind of admired as like a faraway mentor, and even then had the opportunity to work with multiple times over my time in the firm.
yeah,
And she had gone to a European school and, just shared so much about her experience and like how much travel she got to do in Europe. It just like seemed very attractive to me.
yeah,
But then also beyond that, like one of my greatest sponsors at the firm while I was at McKinsey also went to a European school for his MBA. And I remember we had like one just kind of casual conversation where he had said in passing that the reason he had gone to a school in Europe was because he just wanted to do the MBA and come back as quickly as possible and not
mm,
be outside the job market so long. Because,
okay.
a lot of the European programs tend to be shorter, so
One
like
year,
16, 18 months exactly. And that just kind of registered in my mind that, yeah, like, why do I want to be out of, the workplace that much longer? Like, I would much rather just do it quickly, come back, and then continue climbing up the ladder. But I
and
think,
making
like, when
money.
it came, exactly. But when it came down to it, first of all, like, I was just so exhausted that I was like, I need as much time as I can get away
Mm,
from working.
okay.
But then also there were like some personal factors that like played into I'm wanting to go to the US versus Europe. And I'm also Christian, a lot of the decisions I make, I also just like like pray about it and just kind of
Yeah,
see where I feel, most led to. And I think for me, just in that whole process of like thinking and praying about things, the US just felt like the right decision for me.
that
And
makes sense.
then yeah, so it was definitely that like US versus Europe thing, but also just the timing thing. Oh, and also I had to come to a place where I had to ask myself, like, what's the hurry? Why do I want to come back so quickly? Like climb the ladder so quick? Like where am I rushing to? I would have so many more years like to spend working and building my career. There's just really no rush. So I think that was like one big realization that,
Yeah,
helped me also make the decision.
that makes sense. And once you did go to business school, did you realize yes, I actually needed this break, or were you like, ah, I should have done the one year?
What? I absolutely needed the break. I feel like the
Okay.
2 years flew by so fast. At some point, I was like,
Yeah.
should I do a PhD and just get more time off?
Just stay back in this school environment.
Cool. But,
Okay, okay, that makes sense. And you spoke about the fact that you had a sister who was kind of like a mentor. So I assume she probably had gone through like similar process getting a graduate degree, and so your parents were already aware and comfortable with the decision. Or do you feel like there was any resistance when you said, "Oh, I'm gonna leave this fancy job that most people are trying to get and go be an F1 student in America"? Was there any friction in that process? And also, was there any point where you almost didn't go, or was it like, yeah, I'm gonna get an MBA, and it was go, go, go throughout the process?
No, good question. So there was absolutely no friction from my parents. Actually, funny enough, like my parents were always on the side of what are you still doing in this country? Surely
Interesting.
your office can transfer you somewhere else. Like
Mm.
just leave, go to school, get a different job. Like they
And
were
don't
just
come
very
back.
like, yeah,
Just joking.
like just go and do something different. But I think they also weren't nervous like from a work point because they knew that with the MBA, like I had also explained to them, like, hey, like I would also have the option to return to this job. Like there's no scenario where I would be left with nothing. Like if
Mm.
I, went to do the MBA. So there was absolutely no resistance from their side.
Okay.
That was your first question. What was the
Yep.
second?
The
Oh,
second
you
was
asked like,
personally. Yep.
yeah, was there any points where I considered not doing it?
Hmm.
I think so. I would say there was no point where I was like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm completely
Okay.
dropping this. But there was a point where I was like, should I delay this a bit further? Like, just delay it for a few more years. I think in transparency, because like I'm like younger than I'm like, I don't want to say significantly, but I'm like quite like, younger than the average, like
Okay.
the age.
Okay.
And so I was like,
Okay.
okay,
Achiever. Okay.
no, no, no. I think for me, it was a big, what's the word? Kind of, what's that thing? I don't know if it was like an imposter syndrome thing,
Yeah.
but I was like, I don't know, should I be here right now? Like, would I get as much value out of it
Value.
now
Okay.
than I would maybe, I don't know, if I'm older and wiser and then I come back and do this. But then I had to ask myself, okay, what do I think are the reasons that I want to do an MBA now? Like, what am I trying to get out of an MBA now? And like, how do I believe that could evolve in the future? And so I just, had to sit with myself and ask myself those questions. And I was like, yeah, like now is a good time as any to do.
That makes sense. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, let's talk a bit about like the application process and everything. For someone like you who was, working at McKinsey, I don't know if you're listening to this and you're not um aware, McKinsey is like very, that's my employer. I have to be careful. But
I
the
was
job
gonna
is
say,
the job is quite stressful. Okay? Uh, if you know anything about the Big Four or like the MBB or whatever, those are very demanding jobs. So finding the time to study for the GRE, all of that might be inconvenient, right? What was that process for you? So talk about like the GRE process, the visa process, getting application fee waivers, whatever you're comfortable sharing. And please just rant, okay? I'm gonna just let you rant.
no, of course. No, I think that's a really good question. Like for people, not even just in demanding jobs, but like people in jobs in general, like it's a really big task to then like add on applying for schools to that. And so for me, like preparing for the exams, I interestingly took both the GMAT and the GRE. And so for like prepping, I would literally like work till maybe 10 midnight. I don't know, sometimes past on a good day. But what I tried to do at the time was I actually told my manager that, hey, like, I'm trying to study right now for exams. And so I tried to wrap up at like 10 p.m. And then I would literally go home, or if I was working from home, then it was much easier. But then I would literally from that point like study until like 4 a.m. Like just drink coffee. I was going through so much coffee at that point in my life,
Yeah.
but I would study from like 10 p.m. to like 4, 5 a.m. And then sleep for a few hours, wake up, work, do the same thing all over again. So I was doing that for maybe say like a month or two as far as prepping for the exams. And I took the GMAT, wasn't very happy with my score. I think it was like a 600 and something. Like it's one of those things that you do and because you just like put it somewhere in the back of your mind, like this never happened to me because
Yeah. Let's
I
forget
was
this
so
happened.
yeah, like I was so distraught because I was like, oh my God, like I would have really liked to apply in the first round. I think that was what I was aiming for, if I remember correctly. I think I was aiming for the first round, but because like my GMAT score wasn't as high as I wanted it to be, even though people were like, oh no, like I know people that got to lower score, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't want to take the chance and then end up being the one that it doesn't work for. And so I
Yeah.
was like, okay, now I have to take the GRE. But then I found that because I had studied for the GMAT, like coming to the GRE found it much, much easier. And I can talk about like maybe some tips that helped me in studying if that's helpful. And so I took that, was very, very happy with the score, and then applied. But I'm trying to think of what the process was. Okay, I guess maybe to go step by step, like I think the first step is like asking yourself, what schools do I want to apply to? And so for me, my priorities were one, like being in a school that had a strong reputation for finance, two, a school that had like classes and, just programs that were centered around climate. Because again, like I said, I really wanted to get smart about like climate, sustainability, everything in that space, and also meet people that were interested in that. And three, like I wanted to be in a fun city. Like I didn't want to go to a school that was like in a college town type of thing. Like I wanted to be in a place where I would have like a nice social experience where I could, I don't know, go to class, but then after class I'd go to a really nice place for
Mm,
dinner. Like, it's just a walking distance. Like that kind of thing was really important to me. And
yeah.
so I had a list of just three schools that I had decided, like, okay, these are the schools I was going to apply to. And so I
Hmm.
knew that. I think one of the first things I did was I informed the people that I wanted to recommend me to write my recommendations. I informed them, I think pretty early on, like, hey, trying to apply to school, in the coming months, and I would come to you for recommendations. So just FYI. So I did that. And then I did all the basic application stuff. So, there's like a very basic application form for all the schools
Yeah.
that you just kind of have to just get out of the way. So I did that for all three of them, and then I started to think about my essays, like, but not really my essays in detail, just more so thinking, what do I want the applications committee to see when they look at my profile. And I remember there was this podcast I was listening to, and the guy had said, you need to figure out like what your one liner is. Like if they were going to summarize your profile in one line,
Yeah.
oh, Lavalabi, the Nigerian girl, like the Nigerian management consultant who's really
Yeah.
interested in doing with climate. Like, and so what do you want that one liner to be? And so I spent a lot of time thinking about that, trying to figure that out because I wanted my entire application package to really echo that one line, that I thought summarized my profile. And then when I figured that out, then the next thing I did was put together a recommendation packet for all of my recommenders to say, hey, like I like checked for the ones I could see, I checked the questions that the schools had asked for the people that were writing
Yeah.
recommendation letters. And I basically just like wrote out bullets that I thought like based on the relationship or exposure I had to these different people, they could use to answer those questions. And so it's like, oh, like talk about, I don't know, how this person like demonstrates self-leadership. I like wrote, oh, like bullet one on XYZ project where we did XYZ thing, like here's this instance. Because a lot of those people are like very senior, very busy. You might have done like really great work with them and they love you, but they
Ended up.
probably don't
Yeah.
remember why.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was like a really important part of my application.
That was smart.
Yeah. I mean, I think someone advised me to do that. I didn't just come up with it, to be honest. I
Mc-
think maybe I came up with it.
McKinsey
I don't know.
person always asking for feedback and using it. I like that.
But yeah, so I sent it. I sent it out to them. And then I started to, so I was writing my essays at the same time when I was studying. And so for the exams, so my master plan was I would write my exams. And then once I was done, I would get exactly the score I wanted. And then at that point, I would have a very clear mind on what like I was, on the direction my essays were going. But I don't know, I feel like I'm getting timelines mixed up now a bit. But
Mhm.
I know one thing I was doing was I would study like at night, as I mentioned, and study during the weekends. But I would also like take just a block of time during the weekends to sit down and think about my essays. And it was honestly like in one of those sitting down and thinking sessions where like my essay, how do I say, like my story just kind of came to me. Like it was
Together.
kind of, like it was kind of magical. Like I was just
Eureka
sitting there
moment.
and I was like, wait, and I just, start writing. And I remember that day I wrote so much and I was like, oh wow, like now I'm way past like the word count. And so it became a thing of like cutting out stuff. But because I had been spending lots of time just thinking about like my profile, like what I actually want to get out of these schools, what I was trying to get out of the next 2 years of my life, should I be in business school? When I actually sat down to write, like it was really easy to just like articulate exactly what I was looking for. And the reality is like once you have your story, like that's truly the same story you tell to every school. You just sort of
Mm,
tailor it
yeah.
to answer exactly the question they're asking. And so once I had that figured out, it just became a thing of like sending to reviewers and like all of those things and getting feedback from them. And so I ultimately ended up applying in the second round, which was like December/January.
Yeah.
So my December that year was like a very cold, like I was holed up in my sister's flat in London,
Mm.
just like writing essays, like waiting for feedback, rewriting
That was
essays.
that was me too.
So it was a really intense time, but you finally get it out, then it's waiting for feedback and all of those things. Yeah, so I think that's what the process looked like for me, just high level.
That was
Well, not
very
really high.
detailed. That was actually very detailed. Thank you. And I kind of, now that you spoke about like how you got your story together, first, I feel like we watched the same podcast where the guy was talking about getting your one liner out. And
Really?
I spent some time thinking
Yes,
about that as well. And I
yes.
did
I
have a
forget now what the
tagline.
podcast is called, but like it
I
was
also
so
forget.
good.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
good. And I came up with something like that too, which was very helpful for my applications. And I remember when my story was gonna come together, it was very random as well. I was living in England at the time. I was visiting my sister who lives in Basingstoke, and I went out to cycle because I just needed like air. And I was just cycling at this like public park, and I saw like some kids playing, and I went to join them and played basketball a bit. And I was literally in the middle of playing basketball, and it just clicked. Wait, I literally did not say goodbye to the guys. I literally took my
I
bike and just
Oh
left.
my
Like
God.
when I got, I'm like, wait, did I just do an Irish goodbye? Like, okay, I hope I hope they don't hate me, but yeah, it was like that as well.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing. But I also wanted you to talk a bit about like application fee waivers. Did you get any, or did you have to pay? And then maybe like the visa process, if there's anything to share there.
Yeah, no, yeah, I completely missed that. So I did not even ask for application reviewers, honestly. I don't know, like
McKinsey
that's something I should
money.
have done. No, it's not like I had it like that. Also because like I was earning in Naira, let's be honest. And so yeah, like it was a pretty penny, but at the time, like I also just kind of wanted to get things done and keep it moving. It was then later on I was having a conversation with a friend who was also applying at the time, and she was like, yeah, I asked for all the waivers and got all the waivers. And I was like, wait, I didn't do that. So that was definitely on me. As much
Okay.
as you can for every international student, please apply for a visa fee waiver, because it could also be a thing where like you could have a high income in the context of wherever you're living, but like you could still qualify for a visa fee
Yeah,
waiver
once you
because it's like
convert it to dollars, you
yeah,
probably
once it's
will
converted,
qualify
it's
for
like
waiver. Yeah,
they'll be like, wow, this person is below the poverty line. Let's help them. So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
so definitely ask for that, but I didn't. As far as visa application, I think mine was a pretty uneventful process. Like just a really, I think of course, like I guess as it's true for like most people from populated countries, actually getting an appointment is pretty difficult.
Mm.
Which it kind of was in my case. I don't really remember the details, but I think yeah, it was definitely tricky, just constantly checking, blah blah, to get the appointment. But then the interview in itself was like super straightforward because I also had the benefit of just like having everything in check as far as like financing, and also having a brand that was recognizable as far as the school I was going to. So it was a thing
Yeah.
where I literally just walked up to the counter and he looks at my thing and he's like, "Oh, you're going to Columbia and you have funding." Okay, like, and then I think he asked me what I did for work at the time. He's like, "Oh, you work at McKinsey, like what do you do?"
Mm.
And I just like said a few lines and he's like, "Okay, cool." And then just like approved it. Like it was super straightforward.
Your visa process is very unrepresentative of what the
Yeah,
general visa
I
process is like.
recognize
Like,
that. I
this
do
is the best I've
recognize that.
ever heard from anyone who went to Nigeria, like who applied from
I
Nigeria,
recognize
honestly.
that. I was actually in a group chat for people that were applying for F1 visas in
Yeah.
Nigeria, and I was like, hearing a lot of like horror stories, blah, blah, blah. And I remember there was this like specific interviewer that everyone is like, avoid this person at all costs. Your visa will never get
I'm
approved,
tempted
blah, blah,
to say
blah.
what people describe him by, but I don't
Exactly.
want to do that.
It's insane because I had that person. Like that was the person that literally interviewed me
Wow.
and had like refused a visa right in front of me. And I was like, well, I guess like this is it. And I woke up there just like, okay, like do your worst. And he's like,
Mm,
okay, you're going to Columbia, you have funding, you're good. And I was like,
amazing.
okay. So yeah, it was like pretty uneventful if I'm being honest.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, you have your profile is like as good as they come, honestly. And that's the
I wouldn't
little
say
caveat
that.
please, KPM, wait, let's start from Covenant University, KPMG, Sterling Bank, McKinsey, Columbia, funding, like all the boxes are ticked. Honestly, like the interviewer needs to have had a bad night for them to deny
Fair
you,
enough.
right? And
And
I'm
they
I'm
could
really happy
have.
that it worked out. Yeah, they could have.
Yeah,
Yes, that's the thing. Like interviewers have like 100% authority, like they can literally deny you for anything, and they don't, as far as I'm concerned, they don't have to justify it. So yes, you still want to be like as prepared, even if you're going to any school or you have any background. Please prepare for your interviews, and
absolutely.
yeah, go there with good energy. Don't be like super cocky, because they can deny you if they want to. The other thing I was going to say is love applied to only 3 schools, but as you can tell, love's profile is not a regular profile. So maybe you want to apply to a few more if you're listening to this. But yeah, that was a really, really in-depth I guess, into what your application process was like. Thank you for being so open. Now, I'm not sure the extent of support that you feel like you got from folks at Columbia when you were applying, but the general vibe that I get is when you're applying to a school, like admissions committee members are like super responsive, super helpful. The current first year students are like super helpful and all of that. But once people get to campus, it's not in every situation where they still feel like they have access to that level of help or like support. Do you feel like, what was that like for you? Do you feel like you had the same level or less level of support once you then got to Columbia?
Yeah, I know it's a great question, and I should have definitely mentioned like during the application process,
Yeah,
definitely had a lot of help from people that were either alums of the schools I was applying for or to,
yeah,
or currently in those schools. Like they were super helpful, especially like African students or people with just like similar backgrounds or interests. And then as far as support, I will say one like a bunch of people that I had helped me on Columbia where I think I had a lot of help from alums and then definitely some help from current students as well. And when I got on campus, I would say for sure that that translated. Like, but it was also, I was also in a situation where like there was someone, for instance, that was a previous colleague that, I mean, we hadn't really worked together, but we knew each other from the firm. And then the person was also at Columbia. So that, was one of like my first point of contact. And then someone that had then continued to support me throughout my first year until they graduated. And then
oh,
even also people from the African Business Club that had, been helpful in just like answering questions during my application, also reflected the same level of support during like my time at Columbia and even until now as well. So I'll definitely say the help that I got during the application process definitely translated.
amazing, amazing. Assume that I don't know the answer to these questions, okay? Tell me about where your school is located, the city, what the weather is like, whether or not you like living in the city, 1 or 2 activities that you like to get up to when you were in
Okay.
school.
Yeah. So Columbia Business School is located at the very center of business in New York, the best city in the
I'll
US.
let you get
No
away with that.
questions, no argument.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I almost said New York is in Colombia, but, but Colombia is located in New York.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Okay.
It's like, wait, what are you saying? No,
Mm-hmm.
but it's located in New York. As far as the weather, so it's really great because we get like all of the seasons. So gets really when you start in August, it's like the ending ish of fall, and then we go. It gets like pretty cold in the winter. Then we go into spring early in the year, and then summer. So you really get like all the highs and lows in terms of the weather, the leaves falling, the flowers coming back, like everything, like the full experience. I think for me, like I always have loved spring. I love flowers. So just like the flowers coming back, that's always like brings me lots of joy. As far as like things that I enjoy doing in the city, I think one thing, and this is such a basic thing, but I really, really enjoyed running in New York because so in my first day, I live on Riverside, so literally by the river. So there was like a really nice, just like long river path, very close, like literally opposite my apartment. And so I
That sounds
really, really enjoyed it.
expensive.
New York is expensive in general.
Or
Let's start from there.
but the
Let's start
Riverside
from
sounds very expensive, but keep going.
we're all students, please. That's no, so I really enjoyed running in New York and just like walking around the city, like because it's a very walkable, very accessible city. I really enjoyed that. And then also dining in New York, I would say like there were a lot of like different restaurants, different cuisines, like just different from like afternoon tea places that one of my
Yeah.
friends introduced me to like little brunch places, to even like Nigerian food places, just different types
Lagos.
of
Did you used to go to Lagos?
of course, like who did not? Yeah, so that was the spot. And then they opened Native, and then we moved from Lagos to Native. So
Amazing.
yeah, definitely
Interesting.
like dining in New York. Oh, then I have to say shopping in New York as well. Like, I mean, of course, I was a student, so
That
we're not
sounds
really
stressful.
buying.
It doesn't sound fun. It sounds stressful.
Well, for me, it was fun. Just
Okay.
like
Okay.
seeing the different shops, like even just
Yeah.
the architecture of some of the shops as well. Is just really, fantastic. So I really enjoyed
Yeah.
doing this in New York.
Amazing, amazing. I wanted to quickly mention that a lot of the big schools, most of the schools that people want to go to are going to be in big cities. So, New York, Columbia is in New York, Harvard is in Boston, Massachusetts, Cambridge in Boston, in Massachusetts, Booth is in Chicago, Stanford is in California, MIT is in Massachusetts as well. So, like a lot of the big schools, Yale is in Connecticut. So, yes, expensive cities, but that's where most of the opportunities are. That's where most of the industries that people are interested are located. It has to be like I'd say usually people would have to choose, pick and choose between, going to like a cheaper school that's in like I don't know, college
College
town
town.
versus paying the pretty penny to live right in this middle of the action. And I mean, different people's situations, would attract different choices. Good thing is most schools, I would say top 15, top 20 schools, I can say confidently, but maybe even up to top 50 schools have like kind of dedicated, recruiting channels from most of the top employers. So, employers from McKinsey, all of the consulting firms, the banks, all of that will still probably come to your school, irrespective of where you go to. You might just have to be flying to New York every day to go take interviews, but, you know,
Exactly. So just go
there's
to
that.
school at Columbia, take the train over to your interview or walk even. It's so
Amazing.
easy.
Columbia 1, rest of the schools 0. I like that.
Zero.
0, 0. Okay. Okay. Love, people say that the MBA is a 2-year vacation. What did you find out? I mean, coming from McKinsey.
Absolutely. No,
Mm,
yes, absolutely. But when you think vacation, like it's not a vacation. Like I would say it's not an absolute vacation in that you're not doing anything.
yeah.
But coming from working, especially like working an intense, like not 9 to 5, like more like a 5 to 9
Yeah.
job, then it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely a rest period. And I think something I really appreciated about the MBA as well was just how much time and space it gave me to think, like to just think about like what am I trying to do next from here, or just think and reflect on like where I've been, where I'm going, like what I'm like planning next. I feel like when you're caught up in the busyness of work, like you don't have a lot of time to actually just stop and reflect. And I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts the MBA gave me. So in that sense, yes, it was definitely a vacation. And there's a lot of travel as well that just happen. Like I think it's part of the DNA of MBA
Yeah.
programs. And so
Yeah.
in that sense, yes, there's definitely that huge like vacationy aspect to it.
Yeah. And then what did building connections look like for you? I mean, you already worked at McKinsey and a big part of like consulting life generally, but I feel like it's more pronounced at firms like the MBB, maybe McKinsey specifically, is the fact that you're working across, you know, so many teams, talking to so many experts, so many people. So you probably already get access to like, connections with people that are not Africans or Nigerians, and you're probably already used to like the mode of networking that's prevalent at US schools. But like, speak a bit about that experience, because a lot of Nigerians are used to the Nigerian way of recruiting, where you just see an opportunity that you're interested in, you apply. If your CV is great, they ask you to come interview. If you pass, you get a job. Like, you really don't have to speak to anyone, versus in the US, where they probably won't even like enlist you for an interview if you haven't spoken to to 20 or
Yep.
15 people
Yep.
at the firm, right? So
Yeah.
did you feel like there was a bit of struggle there, or like what worked for you, what did not?
No, really great question. So I think to your point, like, yes, I had to a large extent been familiar with that kind of environment, but still, like, it's still not something that comes naturally to me, if I'm being honest. Like, it's still something that I have to put a conscious effort into be like, okay, like now do the small talk. Now, like,
Yeah,
you know, actually try to engage in this context. So it was definitely not something that came natural, but it was something that I knew was critical
yeah,
from hearing from people that had were either in MBAs at the time or had completed MBAs or just like people that were familiar with how the US market worked. And so what I found helpful, I guess first, also for context, like I recruited for banking and banking consulting, those are like some of the most well, okay, actually, I don't know if that's true. But as far as like structured networking, those are some of like the heaviest areas where you would encounter all the like structured coffee chatting and all of those things.
pretty sure it's true.
Right? Okay, good. And so as far as what worked for me, I tried to make sure like I leaned into what I knew, right? Because I think for networking in like Nigeria or in places where I had a lot of shared experiences with people, it was easy to maybe kick off a conversation being like, oh, like your name is like Ayo, are you from like XYZ? And then like that's how
Yeah.
the conversation starts. And then we go into, just like other things and then into work and etc. But it's very
Hmm.
difficult when like you're in a completely different country. You don't have a lot of shared experiences with these people. You probably did not go to the same college with them. You probably
Yeah.
did not play lacrosse like in high school or in uni.
Polo.
Like you probably were not on the rowing team. You know what I mean? And at
Yeah.
first, like I struggled with trying to find my place in conversations where like they're having a lot of those cultural conversations, or maybe they're having a conversation because like they had both been on the same like military base at different
Mm.
points or those sorts of things. And so what I did was I just leaned into what I knew. Like, so I had recruited for natural resources, like energy transition teams. And I made sure that I was very like there was almost nothing about the that energy in the US that I could not have a conversation about. Like I listened to so many podcasts like every single day, making sure that I was like always abreast of what was going on in the industry, like what are new policies, like what are things that investors are thinking about in that space, like what projects are people in that space working on. And so that was what I built a lot of my conversations around, like just industry knowledge, like questions about the industry, questions about the work they were doing. And then, when people see that you're interested enough to have done your research on that kind of thing, like they really open up. So I would say, I think that my coffee chatting slash networking turned out to be like I mean, I would say pretty successful, but it was mainly because like I leaned into that topical like content thing because I realized very early on, like I'm not a naturally like social butterfly where I can just, I don't know, make a joke and light up the room. So I was like, okay, I need to have
I
something,
couldn't
something to say.
I couldn't tell when I met. I mean, I couldn't tell, but okay, keep going.
Okay, okay, I'll take that. I do my best, but yeah, so I definitely leaned into like more the content knowledge side of things, and yeah, that definitely worked out.
Amazing,
Oh, and
amazing.
then also
And
just like do your research before, look at the person's LinkedIn. Oh my God, I did so much LinkedIn stalking. I even would just have friends be like, oh, I will have friends like check people's LinkedIn for me before a coffee chat.
mm,
So the person doesn't see that I check their LinkedIn. And then I would just see, maybe I would see that, okay, I don't know, went to maybe like their undergrad was similar to mine, or I would just like try to find something in their background that, I could start a conversation from. And that also was like a really useful strategy.
amazing. And you guys can tell if you're watching this that loves these strategies. They worked, right? Because you successfully recruited for two of the most intense and most desired industries in the MBA market, and for two of the most prestigious firms in this market, right? Goldman Sachs for banking. Almost every banker wants to work for Goldman Sachs. Almost every student wants to go work for Goldman Sachs. And then McKinsey. Everybody recruiting consulting wants to end up in McKinsey or the rest of the MBB. So I would take Love's advice serious. Okay, I just wanted to put that out.
Not you like casually just like hyping up yourself. Everyone wants to be at McKinsey, and I am. But okay.
I mean,
The
there's a way you
casual
could swing it that way. There's a way
self-aggrandizement,
you could
but
swing it
sure.
that way. But this is about you, okay? This is you're the one being. Take your
Sure.
flowers. Take your flowers.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, I feel like you I mean, you had moved to the US from Nigeria, worked for this fancy firm, went to this fancy school. I feel like it's possible that, growing and living in Nigeria, for lack of a better word, felt like the next best thing after fried rice or before fried rice, whatever. But then you came to the US where you came to Columbia and a very prestigious school, and then New York, where everyone is like that, right?
Impressive, yes.
Right? Did you feel like you were like a small part of a very big engine? What were like the initial feelings that you had when you moved to Colombia?
That's actually a really good question. Yeah, I like, yes. I don't even know where to start from, but yes, I definitely felt that way. I like you, and it's funny because I feel like I felt that way at almost every stage of my life. Like, in primary school, like you're the best students, you're always like first in your class, blah blah. And then you get to secondary school and you're like, oh my God, there's so many people here that are way smarter
Yeah,
than me. And then you get to university and you're like, oh my, okay, this is even worse. And then I got to McKinsey, and I promise you, like, I strongly considered quitting in my first, like, one of my first week, because that was orientation, but like
yeah,
my first actual week on the project. Like after that, I strongly considered quitting and going back to my previous job because I was like, I don't think I'm smart enough for the people here.
yeah,
And getting to Colombia, like I definitely felt the same way as well. But I think for me, like it was more an opportunity to like I just tried to spin it in my head of like, well, this is an opportunity to now build relationships with people that are way smarter than me and
yeah,
learn from people that are way smarter than me. And I also just really tried to convince myself that I still like I'm only here because I have something to bring to the table, right? Like sure, all of these people have like such impressive achievements and experiences, but they don't have my perspective. And I don't have their perspective. And so I may not have done things as impressive as they have, but they haven't like they don't see the lenses through the same they don't see the world through the same lenses that I see it. And so
yeah.
I would be robbing them of something if I didn't share my perspective only because like I didn't think that it was cool enough or blah blah blah. So it was a lot of like you like hype up yourself
That's
and say, okay, like I'm here for a reason.
yeah.
I have something to bring to the table and just like remind yourself of all these things. But it was definitely very tricky. And I think something that I tried to do was I tried to keep myself very open by consciously not putting myself in a box. I told myself early on in the MBA that I didn't want to be tagged as like, oh, like love the MBB consultant, like, oh, she used to be at McKinsey. Like I never wanted to be that person. And no shade to them, but like I'll put up my hand and be like, oh yeah, so when I was at McKinsey, for instance, like I did a project similar to this case where like I never wanted to be that person. I really just wanted to like keep a very fluid profile. Sure, if we have a conversation, you ask like, oh, what were you doing before? I would tell you, but I never wanted to put myself in that box of like, oh yeah, she used to be in consulting and so she probably thinks about things this way or that way.
That's such a good way, like a brilliant way to deal with imposter syndrome and what you said about keeping an open mind and just being open to seeing the world differently. It's such an elite way to look at the world. And I really admire that. I wanted to put that out. But for a question, does Columbia use the case method or it's a combination, right?
It's a combination, yes. So it's not exclusively case. It's like, so in things like accounting, for instance, there's like a lot of like in-class learning and then some cases, but it's a mix. And then there's some classes like strategy or like, yeah, like different classes, but I would say strategy for one, for sure, where it's like purely casing.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. Do you have any horror stories from class being cold called, whatever,
From
to your name?
cases,
Yeah.
no,
Or just
actually,
generally.
no.
Okay. So you're always
Class
ready
horror
for
story.
class, did all the readings.
To be honest, like
Yeah.
I'm pedantic like that. I'm one of those
Mm,
people that will actually read the keys. I'm not even joking. I mean, I will say though, like when I was recruiting in the first semester, there were
yeah.
times when, look, there was this specific class, what's it called? I think business analytics or data analytics. Like, and
Uh,
I was always sat in the back of that class. And I promise you, I didn't know what was going on because I was sending my thank you notes, to the different people that I was coffee chatting with. And it was literally like, I think the day of the exam, I just stayed up all night, tried to learn like all the modeling, and I'm like, cool, let's do this. But I promise you the whole time, like I didn't know what was going on. Because yeah, thank you notes had to be sent out.
I
But
know.
no, I
Yeah.
don't have any like horror stories as far as like,
Okay.
I don't know, cold calling, saying that's so boring. I wish I did. Do you have? Now I want to
Do
know.
I? So the thing is, I recruited for McKinsey like early pre MBA. So
Fair
I
enough.
honestly
Okay.
didn't have anything I was doing with my time. I actually
Okay, so
like
you're very
was
focused.
in the same way. Yeah. I was honestly just like interested in classes. My first year I was very experimental. So I wanted to try a lot of courses that I'd never been exposed to. So I did. I feel like that was a year when I actually focused on school and went out of my comfort zone to take classes that I wasn't comfortable with. So I did. I think I did most of my school study. Unfortunately, I don't have horror stories too, but I like to hear them. So I like to ask. I like to ask. So, Love, were you part of the NBA, the Africa Business? What do you guys call it at Columbia? Is
A
it
business
Africa
club.
Business Conference? Africa Business Club. Were you a part of that? Did you have like friends there? Any commitment, leadership, whatever?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, of course I was. Like, I don't think you can be African at a business school and not part of the African Business Club. It's
Right?
like a taboo. And yes, like I do have some great friends there. It's really great because I feel like that community becomes like almost like your baseline. Like it's almost like the very first set of people that like you truly connect with
Yeah.
in business school, because again, like a lot of shared experiences, shared backgrounds. And so yes, as far as leadership commitments, I did not. I apologize to my president for not doing any of them because he was like, "Love, so you will not do anything." But no, in fairness, as I mentioned, I think I alluded to earlier, I had done an exchange program in the fall of the second year, which was the first semester. And I felt
Yeah.
like, well, if I'm not going to be around for one whole semester, I don't think it makes sense to commit to a leadership program, to a
Yeah.
leadership position. Ever in hindsight, and I told this to every first year that asked me, I think like I realized in hindsight that I still could have taken a leadership role. I still could have contributed more actively to the club. Because I'm like, it was doable, but I just assumed early on that, oh no, like because I was going to be away, then it didn't make sense to take any like leadership position. But
Got
definitely,
it.
if you're going to business school, please contribute to your clubs as much as you can.
Yes.
Take leadership position.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to keep
So shame on
in.
me.
No, that's okay. I mean, you win some, you lose some, right? I'm just
Yeah,
kidding. But yes, I mean, if you were going away for half the second year, I understand not wanting
yeah. Right.
to take that. That makes sense to
Exactly.
me. I forgot to ask this earlier, but so you recruited banking first and then went back to McKinsey. Was that always the plan to go back, or like was there a reason why you chose not to, return to banking full time? Also,
Oh,
did you get the fellowship? I know bankers get this nice fellowship if you're selected for some.
I signed an
There's a
ND. I'm
diversity
kidding.
fellowship team. Okay, I know my answer already.
Okay, no, another good question. So, was that always the plan? No. So, I definitely went into banking with an open mind. Like, for me, it was like, okay, there's a returns consulting on the table, but a big picture, I'm really interested in like climate finance in general. And so, long term, even like sometime, I don't know, at some point, in my career, when it's the right time, I'd really like to spend time in like investing in like more early stage climate finance businesses. Maybe it's venture capital, maybe it's like allocating philanthropic, like a kind of philanthropic fund. I don't know,
Uh,
like what exactly it would look like, but
yeah,
that's definitely something I would like to do down the line. And so for that, I knew that having the right exposure and knowledge in finance would be critical, right? And for me, the banking internship was going to be, or going to business school, I knew that I wanted to do something like in core finance during my summer. I wasn't
okay,
sure yet exactly what that looked like. But then as I talked to people, I figured like, okay, investment banking is probably the best thing that brings me close enough to what I was looking for. And what I really wanted to get out of the internship was like to test my knowledge and capability. Like, can I be successful in a finance role or like that kind of ecosystem? And then potentially I'm like, okay, if this is something I enjoy, that I think gives me the right exposure to people, relationships and knowledge that I need as far as like, chatting like my path to, I don't know, my investing in climate down the line, then,
yeah,
this is something that I would do full time. I will say, like, I definitely really enjoyed my time at Goldman. Like, the people were really great. Like, the team was really great. My summer associate class was top tier. There's still like some of my very good friends until date. But I think as I looked at what banking offered me, especially compared to consulting, I realized that at the associate level, I wasn't going to get as much industry exposure, right? As far
okay,
as like content, I think the associate role to me just seemed more like processy, right? So you're just kind of like doing what you're told to do, which is like not a bad thing, but again, like in my context, like I had been in consulting, I had been an analyst in consulting. And quite frankly, from what I saw of the associate role, not just based on my experience, but also observing what like full-time associates were doing and just like what that hierarchy looked like. For me, it felt a lot like it would be very similar to the analyst years I had spent in consulting. And so just
Mm,
thinking about it, I'm like, I'll be working a lot of long hours. I wouldn't be getting, the kind of like client exposure, content
that's
exposure
one.
I want. Then, is it really worth it? For me, I just kind of decided that it wasn't going to be worth it for me at the time. I always say as a joke that if I could somehow, join investment banking as a VP, then I would do it because I feel like that's where the
Okay.
work starts to get really interesting and like you're
Yeah.
spending a lot more time with the client, you're doing a lot more of the thinking, but then of course that's not an option.
No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. As we begin to wrap up now, right? A lot of, I mean, in the MBA, you spend a lot of, I don't know, reasonable amount of money on very random things, right? Can you remember like I'd say the most random, unreasonable amount of money that you spent in the 2 years, and what was it?
Ooh.
What was it about? Can you remember?
Okay, so my God, my answers to these are so boring because I'm a huge optimizer
Okay.
financially. It's almost like I wouldn't say a negative attribute. I don't think it goes that far, but like I'm a huge optimizer. So there are very few things that I splurge on. Just looking.
Did you go on any treks?
Oh, I absolutely did. So I mean,
Then
like,
you must have
did I
spent
spend a
some
lot of money?
unreasonable money because treks are
Well,
so
I
expensive.
don't. Well, I don't think it's unreasonable though, right? Like, I think, for instance, like Japan was so expensive, but then I was
Yes.
like it was worth it. Like, I would do it again.
I mean, it was worth it for the relationship and everything, but like you spend so much on the treks versus if you had gone to those countries on your own. Well, I mean, it's like you said, it's not unreasonable. It's just like overpriced. But
Yeah,
yes,
like
it's not
because that
unreasonable.
was the first thing that came to my mind. Like some of the
Yeah.
trips, but I was like, I don't think that's like I wouldn't
Fair,
call it
fair, fair, fair,
unreasonable. So
fair,
it's
fair.
hard to see, but yeah, that
Okay.
definitely cost a pretty penny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Love, I want you to give a 15-second or 30-second speech to all incoming MBA students. What do you say to them? Go.
So figure out your why. Why exactly are you applying to business school? What are you looking to gain out of the experience?
Yeah.
And what are you okay with not getting out of the experience, right? So it could be things around like a geographical move, a career switch, or just building new relationships. And so you need to be realistic around like what your priorities are, what you're okay with not getting out of the program, and also be very realistic about like what other people that have gone into those same programs have gotten out of it. So good luck, and I'm sure I don't know you kill it.
Amazing. I couldn't have said it any better. That was great. I wanted
Okay.
to put you on the spot as a I have to pressure test this 3+ years at McKinsey, Being on the spot is what you do. Okay. That was really good. I have one final official question and then two unofficial questions. Final question is when we were applying to the MBA, right, 2023-ish, we had a lot of conversations with folks who had gone a few years before, and they were like, "Oh, you guys are applying at a tough time. The economy isn't what it used to be, blah blah." But I feel like now it's even like worse off in some way, and like the immigration landscape is also a bit more dicey. Do you feel like if you're applying right now in the current economic and immigration landscape, would anything have changed about your decision? And also, like, would there be any considerations that you'll have had? How would you have thought about the decision?
Yeah, no, super important question. And this is something I was thinking about just with everything going on. I feel like one thing I would do if I was applying right now is again going back to the point of like being very realistic about what I want out of the MBA and
Mm,
what I'm okay with not getting. And so, for instance, like if relocation is super high on that list, then maybe I would think twice right now. And you also, and I guess on the other hand, like you need to be okay with a scenario where, you get the MBA, you have a great time, and then you return to your home country or you have
yeah,
to, move to a different country to take your full-time offer. And so
yeah,
you need to be very clear on like, okay, am I gung ho about like being in the US and like actually working in the US right after business school, or is this just more so like I want to get this qualification because I know that it would open more doors for me down the line in my career, and I'm okay with not being, with not like getting work experience in the US right after. And so, yeah, I think that's something like I would ask myself that question very honestly. And I think this, no one has a crystal ball, so it's hard to answer this question, but I would
Yeah.
also ask myself, like, do I believe the landscape or the situation would look any different in the next, I don't know, 3 years or something? Because
Yeah.
I guess maybe even I forget what that word is, but like a question that should precede that for you is like,
Okay.
how, how do I put this? Like, how late am I comfortable getting my MBA?
Mm.
Like, do I
Yeah.
believe, like, am I okay with getting my MBA 3 years from now? Like, do I still
Yeah.
think it would be of value to me? Or is it something that I feel like this is exactly the time I need to get it? And, I better do it now, or, this door is closed for me. Like, I mean, not like literally closed, but then just like in terms of how you think about your career and what you're comfortable with in terms of timing. So, yeah, that's what I.
That's such a really good answer. And like two things that you said I really want to emphasize is one, I mean, one thing that we say a lot in the MBA bubble, the MBA communities,
MBA bubble is crazy, but
right?
that's so right. It's a
Everyone's like, oh, figure out the things that you want out of the MBA. But I really like this perspective of figuring out the things you're okay not getting out of the MBA. Because whether you think about it or not, there are some things you won't get out of the MBA, right?
Yeah.
And you have to figure out, like, what am I okay not getting? That is such good advice. And then kind of the second thing that you said, I think I forget it now,
About timing?
about timing, right? Was a consideration that I had, which is one, you need to know that MBA roles at most firms are like fixed, right? So at
Yeah, yeah,
McKinsey, for
yeah,
example, MBA is coming as associate. It doesn't
yeah.
matter if you
Whether
have
you
10
have
years
10
experience
years
or
or
two.
20 years. Yeah, that's so true.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, when I was applying, I already had like 7 years experience. And so it was very important to me that I went that year because I'm like, it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense for me to delay an additional year
Mm-hmm.
and still
Yeah.
end up getting the same role. So I'm like, I have to do what I have to do to make sure I go this year. And so, like, as I think about what's the economy or what's the immigration landscape going to look like in the future, you have to keep that in mind. Like, you're still going to get the same MBA roles. So if it's not one of the things you cannot survive without, if it's one of the things
Yeah.
you are okay not getting out of the MBA, then the earlier you do it, the better. I really like that you mentioned that. Thank you so much. Now to my two unofficial questions. One is, tell me something about Colombia that you found out only by going to Colombia. So it can be as simple as, I don't know, a painting or an artwork or something in the campus, or maybe a restaurant that you
Okay.
found, something you cannot see in the brochures, right? Something you have to be at Columbia to find out. And then two, two is tell me something about love that we haven't spoken about. So forget all the career and MBA. I know yes, energy enthusiast, fancy, fancy, fancy. But tell me something that makes you human that you're interested in that we haven't spoken about.
Something about Colombia. Oh my God, I feel like that question could take so many different directions. But I think the first thing that came to my mind when you're asking that question, and I guess this is true for like every business school program, is just how many happy hours they were. It's
Hey,
like just how much drinking there is in
yeah.
general.
And they call them so many names: happy hour, sip
Telling you,
circle,
it's like, okay,
meet and
so
greet. Like,
I'm telling
oh,
you, so it's like, let's go to the Baylanda. Okay, so everyone goes to the Baylanda. There's a lot of drinking, blah, blah, blah. And then next, it's like, okay, let's go to, now I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like, okay, so we're going to another bar to drink
to
again?
drink again. Like,
What's
why
going
can't you
on?
just stay here and
It's just
just go home?
how much drinking is crazy. I was
Yeah,
talking to a friend like at the end of the program. We're just catching up about like, how the program had been. And there was something he mentioned. He was like, every day it's like, let's go to the Baylanda, but he's like, we were just there yesterday. Like, what did you not do yesterday?
right. That you want to
And
go
I'm like,
do to
that's
the
such a hilarious perspective. But the other thing about Colombia that I find really funny on the business school campus is when you go to the lobbies in the two buildings, there are like these circles on the walls that have like names of people that donate on campus. And like you would see that the depth of your circle, because like they're like, I don't know how to explain it, they're like coming out of the wall. And so like the deeper your circle, like it indicates like how much you've given to the school. So I always find that so funny.
that's
I'm
broke
like, I
shaming.
was
Broke
showing my
shaming.
mom, I was like, I don't know, maybe in a few years I'll be on this wall with a really like long
Really
circle. So I
deep
always I
circle.
always find that very funny.
That's
Yeah.
that's
So
good.
yeah, it's a
I
little
like
funny
that.
thing.
Okay.
Something
And
about me
about
that
you?
makes me
Yeah.
human. Oh my God, I don't, of course I'm human, but I'm just trying to think like, what can I say about my,
It could be a sport, it could be an activity, it could be an interest, whatever. It could be anything.
I mean, I love a good spin class,
Okay.
take me soul cycle anywhere, love a good spin
Mm,
class. Like, the little motivational speeches they be throwing out in those classes, like it makes me feel like I can do anything in life.
yeah.
So yeah, I love a spin class.
And you love to
Yeah.
run in busy cities too, right?
Yes, I actually, yeah, I really do enjoy running as well. I think that's something I will miss so deeply about New York. Like I
Yeah.
already miss it so bad since being in Houston. I'm like, damn, I can't just like go outside and run. So now we're stuck on treadmills.
I
What
mean,
can
I
we
I
do?
I spent the week in Houston too, which is where you're gonna be, and
Hmm.
a lot of people went running this week. I mean,
So
downtown
you have
Houston
to
is
go to a
pretty.
trail, like it's the kind of thing where like you
Yeah.
have to go to a trail and then most times like you drive to the trail. And to me, so this is such a like thing. I
Mm,
don't like when you have to drive somewhere to go and
to go
run because
and
it's like
run, I
drive,
feel
then you
that.
run, then you drive back. I don't like that. I'm
I
like,
feel that.
if I'm running, I want to run all the way and then run all the way back. So yeah, it's a bit tricky, but
You'll be
anyway.
fine. You find something that works. You find
Yeah, I
something that
promise I'm
works.
more interesting than just a swing class, but that was the only thing that could pop in my head. And
I
because
mean,
you said like
that's
an activity, so
fair, fair, fair. That's a pretty fun thing. I mean, for me, I picked up pickleball in business school.
really, okay.
Yeah.
I guess something a fun fact about me: I'm so bad at pickleball. Why? Because I used to play badminton in secondary school, and
Okay.
so my brain is like wired to serve
In a
like
certain
pickleball,
way.
like I'm serving badminton. Yes, so I get it. Like so now I serve like underhand, and so it's so different,
Ah.
so difficult
Okay.
to like serve overhand. Yeah, so I definitely want to learn. I want to learn
Okay.
pickleball.
Okay, that
Yeah,
makes
so
there's plenty of opportunities to learn in Houston. I think you'd like it for that. There's a
yeah, looking
couple,
forward to
there's
that.
parks, there's in-house courts, so many things. They also have this very nice wall climbing gym. Is that what it's called? Or
Oh, okay,
rock
I
climbing
love
gym or
that.
whatever. Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
easy one too, but yeah,
See, lots of
I
fun
like
things to do.
movement. I do. I like movement. So
Yeah, got the sense. Got the sense. I honestly feel like aside the the depth of experience and I guess depth of experience and wealth of exposure that you brought to the conversation, I feel like I got to know you better, like on a personal level. So thank you for being so honest and so open with the conversation.
it's my pleasure. No, I'm really glad to be here, and I hope that people find this useful.
I'm sure they will. Thank you for making the time again.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, see you guys in another episode of the Business 101 podcast.